At the start of the year, I started the My First Win series, all in the hope of winning a local PGA competition. But is that challenge a little bit too much for me? So far, the answer has been yes, but I think there's a little bit more to the story. So for those of you that don't know, the My First Win series was born from me playing my first competition in over 3 years at Open qualifying last year. And thus my goal for 2025 was to actually do something that I never thought I would have done if you would have asked me a couple of years ago. And that was to compete more. And not only to compete more in the local PGA region, to actually try and achieve a win in one of those competitions. But how's that been going for me? Well, as we can see from the chart that is here now, there has been a little bit of a mixed bag of results so far. My best result actually coming at Fleetwood Golf Club, in which was a tied 11th position. Probably because of shots like that one, just not quite good enough yet. But what was my best score? Well, as they flash up as well now, we can see that at Fleetwood and at Formby Ladies, I achieved a level par score, with the rest of them being over par, which isn't ideally fantastic. But how does that stack up to the rest of the field, and what were the winning scores? What has the average winning score been when I've been playing in those comps? Because that's something that I need to look at to make sure if I am going to carry on with this challenge, it's actually achievable. Well, before we actually see the averages of what the winner has achieved in the Lancashire PGA comps, at the start of the season, I did a little bit of research to see what last year's averages were, to help us when we're playing the In the Red series, to try and give me a goal to aim towards. And I found that they were actually at -3 for the average of the winning score. But how does that stack up to this year? Oh, it's another misput. Story of the season thus far. Well, as we can see here, with all the results from the comps that have been in the PGA Lancashire series, the actual average winning score is 4 under par, -4.4 to be exact. And just below now, you can see what my average score is, +3.7. So we have quite a hefty gap to build up to for me to try and get back to actually winning a competition again. Well, the first thing that I actually need to do is commit to actually playing some more events, and I am doing that. There's going to be about 5 or 6 events that I can get into for the rest of the season, and you'll see that list pop up now. One thing that I do want to do with these events is make sure that I had a practice round. 2 of the competitions that I played in, I hadn't had practice rounds, and I think I maybe lost 1 or 2 shots just because of that. So knowing what these comps are now and the dates are, I'm going to try and get rounds in, even if it's a month before, just so I know the layout of the course. But how am I going to bridge the gap from where I am and where the average winning score is? Luckily, we have a good partner in ShotScope, and you'll see some stats start to flash up here now. And I just want to run through where I am, firstly from a strokes gain perspective, because as we can see, -4.7. This does include some in the reds that we've filmed as well. But there's a couple of areas that I can improve on. Firstly, my tee shots. And on average, I am only finding 38% of the fairway at the moment. It's not my worst strokes gain stat at -1.3. We can see here where that sits amongst the rest of them, but it's something that I need to improve. But I am, in a way, quite happy with where my tee game is, because if you would have asked me at the start of the year, did I have any confidence in my driver, it would have been a firm no. But after a lesson with Damien and having one swing thought that I've managed to stick to now for about 2 months, I'm starting to find more success with the driver. And more importantly, I'm not having the big misses. We see shots where I was hitting these big push slices and they were putting me in real danger, as where now when I hit a poor tee shot, it's generally only just off the fairway. So my key for this one is to make sure that I am able to adapt to actually aiming down the middle of fairways now, and trusting that, sticking with the same swing thought, and actually seeing that that stat, I would hope, starts to improve quite quickly. I maybe also need to get a little bit more aggressive sometimes. I think maybe sometimes I get a little bit too safe and that would harm the strokes gained, but I don't think that is the key stat which I need to be worrying at. Now the next stat is greens in regulation, approach play. And we can see here how poor my approach play has been. It's been costing me 2.47 strokes. I actually only find the green 42% of the time and I am 32% short. I did make the change in the season to a new set of irons because I was feeling that when I was misstriking them, when I get a little bit nervous, I was always coming up short. So I have started to see a little bit more of a trend of where the short shot isn't being as apparent as we're going through. But as we can see there, 42% of the green, 11% missed to the right and 7% missed to the left with 32 short. That needs to improve. And what I will say on that is that I had a couple of lessons with Damien at the start where I was working on my golf swing, and I do feel that I'm actually slipping back to my old setup and I feel like I'm getting a little bit stuck in my old move. So what my aim for this is to have another check-in with Damien on that swing feeling, just solely on the irons, and then from there each week I am to put aside 30 minutes to hit golf balls. Obviously with time and things you can't get everything done. I would like to stand there for 4 hours a day doing it, but if I can do 30 minutes a week, that's more than I've been doing over the past 6 months. Hopefully we should start to see just that area of the game start to improve. If I can get that to round 0 on the strokes gained readings, I think we're going to see some huge improvements there. Now short game, this is an area where I feel like I need to spend a lot of time working on this, because at the moment I'm at 42% of an up and down ratio. That's obviously when you miss the green. But one of the other factors I feel is that now that I've actually become a better driver of the golf ball, I'm hitting it longer, I'm hitting it straighter. When I do get into the area from sort of 30 yards to 75 yards, I don't even up and down many of those. I sort of hit mediocre wedges. And we can see here, as I actually look at the 25 to 50 yard stat from my up and downs, that's down at 6%, which is feeble. Actually from 25 yards and under, it's 57%, so that really bolsters it up. Tour average is actually only 58% that they get up and down on shot scope. So I need to get better at that, and it's not having those silly mistakes. And I think as well, if I had better approach play with my irons, that stat would also start to bolster up, because my irons that I would be hitting into the greens, I wouldn't be missing them in deadly places, making those up and downs being almost near impossible. So that is an area where I'm actually going to go and see another coach. I've got Shane, who's over in Ireland, and we've had checkups in over the phone over Skillist, but I want to go and see another coach, one who's worked with some tour players. I'm just in the middle of booking my lesson at the moment, so you'll see that lesson coming very soon. I think this will give me a really good understanding, and I've seen him work with some of the players. I like what he does, and hopefully that'll give me the confidence. I have found a little bit more in the last few weeks. Instead of thinking I'm going to duff the chip, I've actually been thinking about trying to chip in, which is huge, just changing that mindset. But that is an area where I think I need to just really try and get that up. If I could get that up to over 55% of the time up and down, and maybe get the 25 to 50 yard shots up and down into about the 40 region, I'm going to see dramatic improvements on my strokes gain there. Now putting, this is an interesting one for me. I actually have only been losing 0.77 of my strokes in this area. It's the third worst area on that chart, but it's one that I'm always quite confident with. But one stat that really stands out to me is how I am doing from 9 to 18 feet. We can see that they're separated just here on the chart. I only hold 17% and 16% of those. If we actually just flash up what the PGA Tour average of those is, not too bad actually when we compare those side by side. But it's an area where I feel like I usually hold a few more, and I've just not been doing that. And one thing that I did figure out recently in a video was that I used to always pick a target out in front of me, about 2 feet to start the golf ball over, and I've not been doing that. I did it for the last round that I played in and actually hit more lips and actually hold a few more putts when I started to do this. So that is an area where I'm going to be focusing on. From that 9 to 18 feet, I'm going to be focusing on getting my start lines right, because a lot of the time I've not been starting it on line and just been missing them. I've been tending to push a lot of my putts. So from the short range, I'm generally pretty good from those. We can see that 3 to 6 feet, 82% and 73% a hold from 6 to 9 feet. So that's pretty decent, but it's that slightly longer area here from that 9 feet to 18 feet. If I could just nudge those up, especially the 12 to 18 feet, if I could maybe get that to 15%, all of a sudden, again, it is a great way for me to start seeing dramatic improvements in my score. Just picking maybe 1 or 2 of those off a round is where I've maybe picked off 1 or 2 every other round at the moment. That would see a huge boost in the scores. I'm also considering going to see someone down at Phil Kenyon's putting school and just getting an idea of what my stroke is like at the moment and what my aim is like. I don't really want to change too much in my stroke. I'm very happy with it. I just need to get that aim sorted a little bit and see if there's anything that I am missing. Now, one thing the strokes gained and the statistics don't show is how my mental game has been. And actually, I do get a hard time sometimes in the comments for it, and I know myself, I have been a little bit bitchy about it sometimes, but I do think there has been a massive improvement there. And firstly, the fact that I'm actually just back in competition and getting used to the competitions is huge, because the nerves come along with that, and actually having a card in the hand, it's a totally different thing than I've been used to for maybe the past 2 or 3 years. But the good thing is, I think even shots like that, that's a perfect demonstration. It wasn't my best strike. It's gone up to about 30 feet. And I'm not that bothered about them now. Something's really switched in my brain after having the lesson with Carl Morris and maybe just getting used to competition and thinking, well, actually, 1 or 2 bad holes aren't the end of the world. I can actually come back, and I've seen this in quite a few of my comps, especially open qualifying, where I was 7 over par after 7 and managed to finish 5 over and only miss out on the next round by 1 shot, was a huge win for me. And I think if I can keep that mindset going and keep working on it, it is a learning process, and it's going to take time, because I've got about 15 years of repetition of negativity to get rid of. I think I'm already doing a pretty good job, and I've just got to bolster down on it. But there's also one more question that we have that is specifically for you guys. And that question is, firstly, do you think I'm capable of getting my first win and actually achieving that goal? But more importantly, when we set out on this journey, it was to help golfers improve their game. If I was going to be trying to do this and pick up some information, some knowledge in my learnings and my improvement along the way, it was all in an aid to try and help you guys improve as well. So looking at the coaches that we're working with at the moment, Damien, Carl, Shane, potentially a new short game coach, even getting my dad back involved. Is there anything that you guys would want to know a little bit more? We've also got a caddy coming on, a professional caddy who worked on the DP Tour and has won this season at the moment. Is there anything that he could tell us about how to get around the course a little bit better? Is there any way that we can use the shot scope data better? Club information, anything? Post in the comments down below what you would like to see, or what you would like to see included from the My First Win episodes. Hopefully we can get it done. I believe I can. The scores have been meh, but I think I am improving, and I'm actually enjoying practicing and getting out there in competition, which is massive. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you haven't already, do make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the future episodes. Why not watch the video here, where you can see how I did get on at open qualifying.